we're on.
Okay, so I'll go over it again. 92 feet here, so we'll set it at pattern altitude or at field elevation. We're going to tow about 75 knots, and then we'll come back to 50, 55. We'll land at 60. Okay. Two variometers. The variometers measure differential pressure. What we're looking for is for it to be lifting. So these will show us if it starts to go up, it'll show us that we are in lift. So we're going to try and find that, and then we'll be circling in lift. I'll be checking with you just to make sure you're okay with the turns. Some people get a little queasy on them, but you know, either way, if we do, we'll just stop them. Okay. A couple of things here. The window, you have three options. You can have it wide open, which I recommend with this heat. Stick your hand out. We're not going to turn left or anything. If you put your hand out there, get some more air in. There is a vent here that's open. That vent will bring air in from here also. Then we have very expensive instrument right here. Basically, because these wings are so long, the glider wants to get out of line, out of skew. So in order to keep it aligned with the wings, we try to keep it, the yaw string's called yaw. We keep the yaw out of the glider. To do that, if the string comes over here, I'm going to be pushing on my left rudder. So I'm pushing on the head of the arrow. If it comes over this way, I'm going to be pushing on the right, because I want to get it as close to centered up as I can. Okay, and that's how we'll know that we're in trim and no yaw factor, which then we're 1 to 37.5. So every foot down, we're going to go 37.5 feet. We come down at 138 feet a minute. So if we were to go up today and there's no lift, about 20 minutes, we're back called a sled ride. And we just cruise all the way on back and land. If we can find some lift, we'll do the thermaling, we'll do the circles in it, and stay up a little bit longer. Instrument-wise, I showed you the very basics. This is the release. So when we get to 3,000 or 4,000 maybe today, I'll ask you just to pull that. That'll release us from the airplane. Stick and rudder, left and right, forward and back. And then the rudders, left and right, also on the rudders. The big difference is we have a spoiler, and the spoilers are on the wings, and they spoil the air. So when we're doing, with them closed, we're doing 1 to 37.5, call it 38 feet. When we open those, it goes 1 to 8. This is how I control the energy for landing. What I'm doing is I'm disrupting, I'm spoiling the airflow over the wings. So I'll be using that as we come back in and round and land, okay? This is special. This glider is special because we have it equipped with a hand rudder. We have 2 paraplegic pilots, and so they can put a hand rudder. We connect it, and with that connected, then they can use the hand rudder. And then with that, we also have the spoiler with notches, so they can put a notch in, come back to left and right with the rudder, and keep them in trim. So they have to be busy with those hands. But this is a special glider. That's why it's called Freedom's Wings, because it allows us at our paraplegic. The other day I flew a quadriplegic. We've got a lift, we just lift them right in, set them in, and he had a great time flying with it. Those are the basics on it. Any questions on it?
So the aircraft has a specific type rating and or model name and history.
Grob 103.
A World 103?
Grob, G-R-O-B.
Grob 103.
This is kind of we have the trainers, which are in front of you. This is a Blanik made in the Czech Republic, and actually for the Russians. And we have 2 Blaniks and 3 Grobs. And then we have 4 single-seaters also.
What year was this aircraft manufactured?
This is in the mid-80s. We just repainted them all, and so they look new. But they've been around for a while. And as I say, this one is Freedom's Wings. It's special. One of the few that's converted.
It's made of carbon fiber or composites?
It's fiberglass, and so that's why we keep them covered. The aluminum we don't have to worry about, but in the Florida sun, the glass gets compromised, so we have covers that cover the entire aircraft when we're not flying it. We've got the 2 tow planes. One's coming out right now. This is a 175 Cessna, a Lark, with a 182 engine, so it's got a bigger engine in it. It was a banner tow aircraft before we got it to do this. So he'll take a test flight just to go out and make sure he can get around and come back, and then we'll hook him up, and we'll go second after these guys go.
So when one comes in for landing, since there's no additional power to make corrections, what is the expected flare or round out associated with the landing of the aircraft and keeping the wings off the ground?
The thing is keeping the wings level. When we get in, you'll recognize that you're really low. We just wheel away from the runway, right? So what we'll be doing is about halfway between the 1,000-foot markers and this taxiway hotel is where I'll touch down. So we take off from the grass onto the runway, and then when we land on the runway back into the grass. So it'll be a slight flare, but mainly I'm just going to hold it and let it settle on. So I'll be doing 60, and then I'll let it bleed off a little bit, and it'll roll right on. The biggest thing is to keep wings level. We've got a little bit of wind out of the west today, so that for emergency procedures, if we go down the runway and for some reason the tow plane would lose power, he'll go to the right, we go to the left. I'm sorry, he goes to the left, we go to the right. Same thing when we get off. He'll go left, we'll go right, and away at 3,000 or 4,000, depending on what we can get. So that's the way we'll separate. Up to 200 feet, we'll land straight ahead. If we're above 200 feet, I'm just going to make a right turn, come right back in and land if the rope would break. And then about 500 feet, we just do a modified pattern and come right back in. So those are kind of the emergency procedures we look at. When you're doing the training, one of the things that instructors will do is they'll get you above 200 feet and simulate rope break, they'll release. The idea is you get comfortable with the idea that you can at 200 feet make it back. And so we'll always call the 200 feet, which is actually 300 feet here. We'll say, okay, I'm now 200 feet. So mentally what that does, it transitions you into, if something would happen now, I can make a turn and come back in. In this case, with the wind out of the west, I'd make a right turn and come right back around and land. Okay.
Mike, how long is the tow rope?
200 feet.
200 feet?
200 feet. And so for the first part of the tow, it's basically an arcade game. So what I'm doing is I'm staying behind the tow plane and keeping the rope tight. And he's clearing for other traffic. I may glance left or right, but my main focus is on him. And he's the one clearing for any other traffic.
How much vertical distance in the flight path difference is there between the tow plane and the glider? Is the glider considered to be below the line of flight, or is it considered above?
Usually it's right behind, and I usually put his wheels on the horizon. Now what you'll find though is when you're flying power, you call them bumps. When we fly, we call them thermals, which is what we want to have. So if he 200 feet ahead of us, if he starts to go up, I'm not going to chase him with the nose of the aircraft, because 200 feet later I'll be in that same lift. So I'm not doing a lot of chasing, I'm just holding, and if he gets up a little higher, I'm just going to wait, because I'm going to come right behind him. Okay. So we're going to be going together like that, and as he makes a turn, I'm going to turn with him at about the same angle of the wings that his wings are. And so I'm just going to turn and follow him. He's going to stay relatively close to the airport until we get to altitude, because if something happens, we both have to get back. So if he had a problem, he would wiggle his wings and say, get off. We had on the other tow plane a couple of months ago, it had a cylinder that popped on it, and I was at about 1,500 feet with a guest ride, and he said, get off. And so, you know, came back around and just came back in and landed, and then we had to repair the tow plane. So until we get to altitude, he'll stay relatively close to the airport.
What are your expectations of me as a passenger in terms of having a sterile cockpit for takeoff, flight, landing?
We'll talk it through. We'll talk through the whole thing, because as an instructor, I'm going to kind of give you the same pitch that I would be if I was working with another student.
Sure.
Just give you an idea of what it's like. Once we get up, I don't know, see what the ceilings are right now. It's starting to build pretty quick. So what I'm going to do is check the ceiling, see what kind of altitude we can get. I know we got rain coming in this afternoon, so I want to try and make sure we get our flight in before it. Okay, so it's saying 220 at 6 with no clouds, so we'll see what we can get to.
Okay, looking forward to it.
Yep. So we can shut that off for a little bit if you want, and I'm going to go get him hooked up, and so it'll be just a couple minutes.
I'll videotape that process as well.
And one of the things as a wing runner that last thing you want to do is you check the rope, because a knot in this rope takes 50% of the strength out of it. So we want to make sure there's no knot.
So I would accomplish that task by starting at the connection point there and tracing it all the way back.
Walks it all the way back and checks it.
You want me to go do that?
No, we've already done it.
All right.
And then at this end, because we land onto the runway, we don't want these connectors dragging on the runway. So we have a wiffle ball. So it rides.
Oh,
like that.
It's ingenious.
Yeah.
Hot. It's so hot.
That's why I always put my belts under the cushions.
Which this whole thing is burning.
Yeah. Wait to connect them until both pilots have got their belts on. Yeah. Get over here off the wing. So as a wing runner, the last thing I do is I check the rope, make sure once we get it tight, and then I check the canopy, air brakes are closed, and no tail dolly on. Cat check at the last part.
Zephyrhills, traffic Cessna 58 Tango, taking off on runway 19er, glider in tow, staying in the pattern, Zephyrhills.
stay low behind
Downwind to runway 23
the
Zephyrhills.
tail of the tow plane up. We'll do the same thing. He's doing a pattern, so we'll wait a little bit because he's going to come right back around. He's using his spoilers to control the energy, and the Blaniks have spoilers top and bottom. So when he goes to use them, you'll see them open both ways on the wing. There they are. As I say, the Blaniks are built in the Czech Republic for the Russians.
Yeah, I saw that it has a forward aspect on the wing.
Yeah. It's really good, docile, good trainer. That's how it looks. Let me coordinate with John here real quick to see. One more time, and then hopefully solo. This will be his first solo, so we'll wait just a little bit if that's okay. What time do you have to be out of here?
I'm at your convenience.
Okay, great. We won't be long. Go 6 to 12 adult. In my case, just ride. Try to complete.
Roger, that's all. Wait for the planning.
Yep. So you notice how low we are. We're sitting right on the wheel. So I had a 737 captain almost climbing the back with me because she was used to her sight picture for the 737. And we'll watch for birds. If you see other airplanes, just point them out to me, and if we look for the birds, they're good thermalers. Open. Close. Got it. Okay.
Go ahead and close the canopy.
Well, just wait just a little second until he starts pulling forward. You flip that little switch if you would, that silver
Master.
master. Yeah. Okay, and when you bring it down, just pull that latch forward. Okay, and then just put your hands right above your head, kind of up on the glass, kind of push on it a little bit. There you go. That way you make sure it's closed. We have to go to Argentina to get these canopies. You'll hear my little beeper beeping back here. So once we get the rope tight, I'll give him I'll wiggle my rudders. That's my signal that I'm ready to go. He'll do his, and we'll be off. Any other questions, Charles?
No.
Okay, cool. We'll go have some fun. Now I have my brakes are on the all the way back on this, so I do that. Excellent. Back and locked. Just let him know we're ready. Give him a thumbs up.
I'm gonna keep my feet off the pedals and my
Okay.
hands on my
Zephyr
legs
traffic,
while we're
Soaring
taking off for
Tango,
sure.
It's rolling on 19er, glider in tow, Zephyrhills.
Here we go.
minute is his expected takeoff and tow to altitude?
About 500 feet a minute. It only takes about 6 to 8 minutes to get up, depending on the density altitude. It's a little hot today, so it takes a little bit longer. just going to make a right turn. That way we separate so we don't miss each other, you know, get in collision with each other. So it's always you go left and I go right. Yellow one?
Yep.
Yeah.
Pull it now.
A second longer here. We've got about another 100 feet. I just want to make sure you know where it is. Okay, go ahead and pull. We're right. Just pull. Walk. Yeah, we're clear to the right. Going right. Start trimming it up, slowing it down. Here we are.
Wow. What's the best way to take care of internal cabin heat?
Just keep your hand out the window. Get the air, all the air you can. So we've got, you know, I mentioned to you, like, we've got guys that'll do this for 5 hours.
Yeah, it's quite involved.
And for cross country, if it's a good day, we've got guys that'll go to Ocala, and then all the way down to I-4 and then back. Now we've got the winds out of the east, so out of the west, so I'm going to stay west of the airport here. Because that's the other thing, is you're in a moving air mass, so it's kind of three-dimensional sailing. You won't get far from the airport, so you can see the airport down on your left.
Oh yeah.
It's on the left face, 19
So most of the turns are initiated with the stick, and the rudder is usually just for keeping the airplane in.
Yep, takes the yaw out. See, I'll show you real quick with the rudders what it can do. So you go, see how it swings?
Oh yeah.
Swings back. So that's what you're doing, is you're keeping that motion out of it, but you're trying to stay in trim.
traffic, Tampa, it's on the 1 mile final for 19 Zephyrhills.
Well, there we go. That's a little bit of lift, huh?
We're going to go see if this cloud's working up here in front of us. Trying to see which side the cloud's working. We're going down. We're about 200 feet a minute. Unless we find some lift, it'll be just a long sled ride. But it gives you a good feel for what it feels like.
Sure. So what's the maximum crosswind component that's recommended for putting this thing back on Earth?
What's what? I'm sorry?
Maximum crosswind component that's
About 10 knots.
Oh, there we go.
We're going to sneak around here a little bit, see what we can find. There's some sinks. We want to get out of that. okay with the turns?
Oh yeah, no worries so far. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Traffic up at that 515. Left.
Flying, when you practice turns around a point, you get a road intersection or something, you know, and then you practice making your turns around it for accuracy. We're doing the same thing, except we're looking up instead of down. So I'm looking at the cloud rather than the ground. I'm trying to center up all the way around on which side of the cloud is actually working. Per se, but we're staying under this corner of the cloud, which is where we're getting our lift.
Traffic. It's rolling at 19 glider in tow. Staying in the back.
Now I find definitely some sync right there.
Just got out.
Considering our distance away from the airport, what's your decision altitude when you're going to decide to return and get in the pattern?
There's basically a rule that says if you're under 3,000 feet, you should identify where you can land. Get to 2,000 feet, you want to start focusing on it, and if you get down to 1,000 feet, you want to land. So this is for like landing out, like if you're across country somewhere.
Yep.
But for here, I'm usually comfortable. If I'm over town here at 2,000, I'm not worried at all. I want to be about 4,000 if I'm north up at Dade City to get back. And after you do this for a while, you have some instruments that you can carry that actually calculate how you're going to be when you get back. So it's kind of a cheater. Go over town. There's a couple other spots over there that are usually pretty good. So 301 is the highway through Zephyrhills, which is the highway ahead of us up here. And on the other side of it, where we are, we have to stay under 6,000 feet because they let down into Tampa International. To our left, we have to be under 3,000 feet on the other side of 301, because that's under the Class B airspace. start to see the rain now out over on our right, about 10 o'clock. That rain's coming this way.
That we definitely want to avoid.
Yep.
Right downwind for 19 Zephyrhills.
That's why I wanted to get this in right away, because it's going to rain out later. Okay, so also I'm going to put the nose right on downtown Tampa. You see it right on the hazy horizon there, all the high rises.
Sure.
That's downtown Tampa.
Are you blowing smoke on purpose? Yes. Scared us there for a minute. There's a lot of people in this formation. Okay, Tango is turning to rotate for 19 Zephyrhills. Zephyrhills traffic 3 mile to Alpha, entering 45 downwind for runway 19.
Okay, I'm going to see if I can make a turn around here and catch a little of this. Like if someone joined me in this one right now, they would turn right with me.
Okay. I take it sometimes when there's multiple gliders out there, it can be distracting.
Yeah, so you want to be not going head on each other, because when you're doing competition, there'll be 20 gliders in the same thermal. Cycles through during the day, so once in a while you get a big blue spot where there's no lift, and then they'll come back in. So it kind of, you know, again, it's hit or miss. It's art and science combined. You know why gliders go around in circles.
Yeah. Well, it's straight and level flight isn't the most entertaining anyway. You gotta keep yourself busy.
Yeah. If you can't find a really strong thermal, we call it scratching, you'll scratch around down here. And there's usually, I mentioned, two groups. There's a group way up high, but figured out how to get up under the cloud, and then there's guys down below trying to figure out how the heck they got up there.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the two groups of pilots. So I'm kind of moving around a little bit, see if I can find it a little stronger. Definitely. One thing we watch for is that rain coming in, because as those rains rain themselves out, you get a lot of wind just ahead of it. So you kind of have to be watching that, so that if it gets a little close, you want to be on the ground and not worried about that. We're in good shape here, so it's not a problem, but another hour or so we'll see. Because it's actually coming in off the coast. And when sometimes the air masses meet up, so you get the air mass from the east coast and the west coast, and then you get what they call a sea breeze, where you actually can fly along where the air collides and just go straight right under that whole area.
Okay.
Which is a lot of fun.
Because one set of moisture versus the other is going to be pushing the air up or down.
Push each way, one coming from the east, the other from the west. And they get a real funny looking cloud right at the base. Once you see it, you know what it is. Over here and see if this cloud works.
What's the stall speed on this thing?
It's about 37.
Okay.
Slow flight at about 40.
Is there a flap setting on it, or there's no flap?
No flaps. So it doesn't really like to stall at all. It just kind of wallows. It doesn't have any bad characteristics, so it doesn't, you know, break off on a wing or anything. It just kind of stalls straight forward. If I could get us up a little higher, I'd just show you, but it's not supposed to do them under 1,500 feet anyway, just for safety. So this is Zephyrhills. Gives you can see how many trailer parks there are out here.
And a lot of RV parking too.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, thankfully it's high enough above the earth so that when the big tropical storm comes in that there's some drainage, right?
Yeah, but it's amazing how many lakes there are around here. We stay out of that southeast corner because that's where the parachutes all come in. Yep.
Looks like there's an airplane broke down on one of the taxiways over there.
That's a DC-3, the old World War II C-46.
Okay. It's there year-round?
It's been there for about a year. Supposedly they're working on it, but it doesn't seem like they make much progress.
You see that airplane up there?
Yep, tally ho.
Roger. So I guess if there's a specific speed setting, if we're at the intended speed setting and we have a certain angle on the wings, there's a turning radius that you would...
Yeah. A lot of times, depending on how small the thermal is, you have to go up to, you know, even in the 60-degree turns to try and stay in them. But for most of it, we're... best glide for 2 people is 57. So
indicated on the airspeed monitor by that
57 knots. Yeah.
That yellow.
So that would be if I wanted to go the farthest. I would be at 57 knots. find something up here. If not, we're going to head in. We're getting down there to hopefully I can find a little bit more over here.
So I see what you mean about students who train on the simulators on the computers have a lot more input onto the control surfaces than is actually required. You're not really doing a whole lot of input.
No.
Very gentle.
Yep.
In there, John, 2345. Yeah, I got you, 2345. Jump.
Okay, so we're going to head back in. Zephyrhills traffic glider, 6 Bravo Golf, 45 to the entry, right downwind for 19 Zephyrhills. Okay, so I'm going to do an angle in here now, set it for 60 knots. My landing gear is down and locked since it's tight. Speed is 60. I'm going to set the trim. Once I get downwind, I'm going to check the air brakes just to make sure you'll feel the difference. And we're getting some sink here in the patterns. I'm going to speed up a little bit, cut the corner. Zephyrhills traffic glider 6 Bravo Golf is right downwind for 19 Zephyrhills. Okay, I've got 60 knots. Always get a little lift on downwind here. Okay, so once I check the spoilers, which I'm going to do right now, you'll feel the difference. Now I set 60 knots, and I'll make a call for right base. We're right downwind. I'll make a call for right base and then landing. See that DC-3 down there still has the D-Day markings on it.
How much does your sight picture of the landing require me to be ducking? Doesn't matter?
Nope, you're good. Zephyrhills traffic light,